Looking for clarity and confidence when it comes to decision making for your business? You've come to the right place. You're now listening to the Atomic Business Coaching Podcast.
All right, today we're going to go a little bit different of a route. We usually do a very structured course, but we want to talk about one of the chapters of our book, The Atomic Game Changer. And this chapter is called Surrender. This is one of the most important things you will have to do as a successful person, as a successful business owner, as any kind of success in your life. You're going to have to surrender your old life, right, Tom?
Absolutely, 100%. You can't change things if you don't surrender old habits.
So let's talk a little bit about kind of why people want to change their life and what the especially when they're starting a business. Like, why does someone really want to come in and change everything?
Well, a lot of times we see, especially with people who are side hustlers that want to go into their own business, they need to get out of that mindset of being an employee and develop a mindset of being a business owner. And
not how do they do it? Why do they? So someone who's a side hustler, why do they want to change and start a business?
Well, they want to change because they're miserable in their current life. They're not getting the fulfillment or the satisfaction, or they're not experiencing and realize that they have more potential, and they want to give that to themselves rather than give it to somebody else who's employing them.
Okay, so that's part of it. And I think you hit a small section of it there, which is, I think most people want more, right? They look at this and they're truly saying, like, I want more out of this. And they're watching a lot of social media and YouTube and TV, and they're seeing this glamorous, self-employed life. And they think, like, okay, if I could figure this one little thing out that I'm pretty good at, or I really have a lot of love for, or I've figured a way out to make it easier or simpler for something, I can go sell that and start a business, right? Isn't that a lot of times what we're looking at?
100%.
Or they have a lack of competency and they don't think they can go work for someone and rise through the ranks, or they have a lack of skill set or education that they can't go do the thing that their friend is doing that makes $200,000 a year. And they're like, okay, if I start a business, I can control my own destiny.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of what this is people are looking for this freedom and success. And why we have written our book, The Atomic Game Changer, is these are 9 principles that you need to be successful in life. Okay. It's not just about running your business. It's about running your life as well. And what surrender really means is you have to let go, right? Surrendering is letting go of something. And this is really what we want to talk about today, is to help you understand the importance of what it means to let go. If you are going to transition from one thing to another, it means you have to change. And what most people think about when they change is they have to learn new things. They have to take on new stuff. What they really don't think about is they have to let go of all that other stuff they were thinking, all those other things they were doing, all the ways they were acting, what they have believed, how they have behaved, because that is what they became. And if you no longer want that, you're going to have to surrender all of those things, not some of them. And that's the scary part, is people come into this as a side hustle and they think they can kind of do it. You cannot be half pregnant.
Right.
You cannot say, I'm going to just kind of do this thing. You're either all in or you're in the way when it comes to building a business.
Mm-hmm.
Now, financially, you may not be able to just jump in and do that. And we understand. And it's okay to have a side hustle and an employment that pays you an income to pay the bills. But you have to adopt a whole new person of who you are. So, Tom, why don't you talk about the mindset of what an employee really is, especially when they are building a side hustle? Like, what do you typically see in someone who is an employee but wants to escape and leave this other thing?
Well, a lot of it is they're in a bit of a fixed mindset in the beginning, right? They didn't grow well into their job. They didn't adopt the learning behaviors. And now that they want to do something different, it's like, okay, it's time to learn. But I think what causes a lot of people to be afraid is the process of change, right? Change is a process. And it takes time to go from that side hustle to that being full business owner. I mean, I could speak from personal experience about how it took me a long time to get rid of that employee mindset and be focused on the plan B, right? There is no plan B when you are in a surrender, when you've surrendered. You're all in, like you said, or you're in the way. And I think one of the biggest challenges that most people experience is understanding that there is not a plan B. And so many people hold on to their jobs until they're ready and they wait for that perfect time to quit their job. But what they have to eventually realize is there's no time that is perfect. Because if you're not giving it your all, you are creating the plan B without really consciously creating it. It's a subconscious thing that it becomes. And until you really take away that paycheck or you take away that steady income, and now you have to do this for yourself, you don't appreciate how much of you could actually become in that situation and how much of your potential you can reach. Because once you've eliminated that plan B, you are now in charge of your destiny, and it's on you whether you succeed or you fail in this.
So what Tom is saying there is exactly what we mean in our chapter of the book, Surrender. Even when you still have your employment while you're building your side hustle, at that moment, when you start building your side hustle, that's the moment you need to surrender being an employee.
Mm-hmm.
You're not physically going to leave your job, but mentally, you need to say, I am no longer an employee.
Yep.
And you have to act as a business owner all the time, even when you're in your 9-to-5 job, even when you're generating that other revenue that's going to allow you to build your business one day. So here's the hard part about this whole thing, is you have to abandon every single piece of who you used to be. That's what we mean by surrender. David Goggins said you have to burn the boats, right? And maybe he took it from somebody else. But you have to go across that river to the other side into that fight and burn the boats. There's no return. You can't come back to who you were, because that's what your body will tell your brain is, hey man, I know you think you're a business owner, but we're still an employee, and it's kind of comfortable to think this way, and it's kind of comfortable to act this way. So let's go back to that, because even though we're miserable, as Tom said in the beginning, and that's why we want this change, that misery feels comfortable because we're used to it.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, well, I know it's not how I want to feel, but I understand that feeling. Because when you surrender, you are changing everything. You are changing the way you think. You are changing the way you act. You're changing the way you eat. You're changing what you do each and every day, how you get dressed, what times a day you do certain things. Everything will change.
Yep.
So that means in order to have any success, you have to abandon the entire person you used to be. You are becoming a brand new person. And if you hold on to any of that, going through this, you will not be able to transition and change. And this is a very difficult thing, because most of us love a large part of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of who we are that we're like, I'm so grateful. This is how I became the person I am. But if you want to build a new business, you can't be that person.
Well, I think it's because it's such a level of commitment that you may not have been used to in the past, right? Like you're saying, burn the boats. I'm thinking of kamikaze missions, right? You going in, you know that there is no other way out. You've got to just make this happen. And you're so committed to it. And it really takes, when you surrender, it takes a new commitment to yourself. It changes the entire dynamic of who you are as a person and that level of commitment, because you're never going to be committed to that job the way you're going to be committed to yourself. And I think that's one of the biggest mindsets that people have to get used to, is that you are recommitting entirely to you and what you want to achieve, nothing else. And if
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that, because there's a key point when you have to make the decision that you're going to surrender. And in our book, we tell you to sign a contract with yourself that you are this new person, you are this new thing. When you are committing to that, and you're not ever going to look back, you may not be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're unable to do that, well, maybe you're unable to be a business owner and you need to just be an employee. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
But you can't waste your own time, your old self's time or your new self's time, because if you're half in this, like we said, you can't be half pregnant, it will not work. And you'll actually damage the employee, the old one, and you'll damage the new person that you're trying to become.
Right.
So there comes this moment when you really have to accept it and surrender everything you used to be. But if you cannot do that, you're just interested. And Tom said something, you have to be committed. There is a major difference between I'm interested in starting my own business and I'm committed to starting my own business. When you are committed to something, nothing can get in your way. It is by any means necessary. When you're interested, when it gets uncomfortable, you'll go back to the things that were comfortable. And you go, I don't have to do that today because I can still rely on the job's going to pay me some income. And I don't have to work that hard today. I'm going to go take a break and everything. No, when you're committed, there's none of that. And that's what surrendering is. It's committing to the new person you're going to be and committing to doing the work it's going to take to achieve your goals. But the uncomfortable never goes away. I've been doing this for a very long time and I am still not comfortable being a business owner because it's a constant change. That's the only thing I can guarantee as a business owner is there will be constant change. You have to adapt all the time. When you're an employee, someone else is adapting those changes. And maybe, you might have to punch your clock in a different place, or you might have to use a new app for your payroll, or they may say you need to do something on the left instead of on the right. But they have had to decide what those changes are. And you have a little inconvenience and it's annoying and there's complaining. But when you own the business and operate the business, you have to consistently change. So if you're uncomfortable with change from who you used to be and surrendering to who the new person wants to be, then you might not ever be good with being a business owner because you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that is what business is. There's no time when you sit down and you're like, whew, I made it. I did it. It's a never-ending thing.
Yep.
And if you're not ready for that, then you might not be ready for that. That's what I'm trying to say to you.
Yeah.
Because as you're doing it, your body will tell you, I'm sorry, I want to go back to that old thing. And that's what Tom is saying. When it's a continuous process that took him time, he's still not through it. As I said, I'm not still through it. But you'll always go back. Your body has a memory. Your brain has a memory that will say, remember when we used to just clock out at 5 o'clock and go home and drink a beer and watch TV? It's not an option anymore.
Right.
But the cool thing about when you surrender is you get to choose all those changes that you make. No one else is choosing them for you. You're the one who gets to set the path. You're the one that gets to take the actions. And whether you're disciplined or not, whether you're going to have enough grit to get through this or not, actually doesn't make a difference. Okay, that will determine how successful or unsuccessful you are. What matters is that you can fully commit to leaving everything behind and moving forward with this new life. So Tom, how are some of the ways that people actually can change in general?
Well, like you said, there's that muscle memory that is so easy to fall back into. It's really hard to establish the new habits, right? And that's what we're talking about changing. You just have to change one thing to change everything. It doesn't have to be this massive thing or group of things that change. When we form habits, we talk all the time about how there's always a trigger to what happens. So it's a trigger, it's a thought, it's an emotion, an action, and a consequence. And really, to change that whole habit is when we're triggered by something, is to just change the way we think about it. And changing that thought will eventually change the emotion, the action, and the consequence that follows that new thought. So really, to start the change process is really to start changing how we think about things and the ways that we think, right? When you become fully committed to starting your own business and going full in you can't ever say again or think again, oh, I'm just going to go back to work if it doesn't work out. That no longer is a thought that you're allowed to have. That thought, it goes away. That's what a failure starts to say, is I'll just go back to another job, or maybe I should just get a job in the meantime. Well, no, you have to commit 100% because the effort you're going to put into that other job, you could just be putting into your own thing if you weren't afraid of it, right? So it's also changing how you approach the unknown and start looking at what you don't know about it, or that new level of commitment and coming out of that comfort zone as, what else do I need to know? What do I need to learn? What questions do I need to ask? And then just start doing that. But it's all in what we're really thinking that really changes it, because it's a habitual nature for us to go back into the easy things and to fall back into just doing what's comfortable. And we really have to work at changing that habit. And that is what takes practice. Change is just changing one part of the habit to change everything else, and keep practicing it.
So I'm going to give you a secret about habits and change and comfort. So what you may not know is, when you have a habit, Tom, do you really think about it anymore, or you just do it?
No, you just do it. It's an automatic. It's a reflex.
And does it feel uncomfortable?
No, it just,
okay.
Until you get to it, it depends on the habit. Sometimes it does, but it especially if it's a habit that's really negative, it needs to be changed versus one that you want to change for the better. Right. So it could be uncomfortable.
But even like even a bad habit doesn't feel uncomfortable. That's why you continue doing it.
That's true. That's very true. Yes.
Not because you feel comfortable.
Right.
You know, it's not that difficult because it becomes a habit.
Right. But the level of discomfort gets to a point when that habit, that bad habit becomes uncomfortable, it means it's time to change it.
Wait. But what? Okay, so let's carry.
That's what I was going on. Yeah.
But let's go this way with it. So when it becomes uncomfortable, you're at a point when you don't change, it just changes for you, right?
Yes, pretty much.
Like when it comes unbearable,
there's no choice but to change it.
Okay. So here's where I was going with this little tiny secret about being comfortable and having habits. When you have a habit, it's typically very comfortable for you, okay? When you are uncomfortable, that means you are learning something new.
Mm-hmm.
Being uncomfortable is because it's new and you're learning. So if we are always comfortable, you're not getting new skills. You're not getting new information. You're just carrying out its muscle memory, as Tom said before. It's just, I don't even have to think about it. It's second nature, right? When we learn something, and we do it over and over and over, we're not learning anything. We're just output, right? We're just doing the thing that we've already learned. So if you want to grow your business, if you want to grow your bank account, if you want to grow your life, you're going to have to be uncomfortable because you need to learn new things. You need to acquire new mindsets. You need to acquire new actions that you're taking. So being uncomfortable is the key to having success. And this is why we're telling you must surrender, because your current life is kind of comfortable. There's nothing really that difficult until you get to the point that Tom was saying. It's unbearable almost.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're trying to force this new change. I want to build this side hustle. And you are making it to a point where it's like, all right, I can still go back here. I'll just do it for 3 hours a day. And maybe you get a sale and you do a thing and you make a little bit of money and you're like, oh my God, that was scary. Now I have to deal with the consequences of that. Yeah, that's more uncomfort. That's learning the next step. But what happens with people who are kind of half in, half out is some of them get lucky and the other ones just do it forever. And they kind of half in, half out on everything. And they don't really learn new things. Things happen to them. And what we're wanting you to do is choose your own path forward and make that commitment to signing a contract to yourself, saying, I am no longer this person I used to be. And this is Tom and I's entire process of believe, behave, become.
Mm-hmm.
You have to truly believe that I am no longer that person over here and I am now this person over here. You can't just kind of say, well, I'm going to do that. that doesn't work. Saying I'm going to do that and I will one day be that, it does not work. You have to believe that I am no longer who I used to be and I am now this way. I believe it. But then you have to behave like it. And the behavior is the most uncomfortable part.
Yep.
But if you believe that you are no longer an employee and you start behaving like your own boss, then you will become your own boss. We always say business and life are simple. They're just not easy. And that's the thing, is you have to truly adopt it, surrender it, and have this new belief. But the part that's not easy is behaving that way consistently because it's uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But what I am trying to say over and over, and I know I am redundant here, is that it's not going to be comfortable. And you have to embrace that. We have a whole thing called embrace the suck, because it does. It sucks feeling uncomfortable. But if you're choosing that uncomfort because of the path that you set before you to achieve the greatness that you know you're capable of, then yeah.
It's like anything else that you attempt to do that's new. I mean, I keep thinking about just exercising in general, right? Like if you're going to build muscle and you're going to get fitter and you're going to practice every day or you're going to exercise every day to make your body better, your muscles go through this period of discomfort. And even when you achieve whatever your goal is and you still try to go further, you still challenge your muscles and you live in that constant state of discomfort. And it's only uncomfortable though for a limited amount of time, but it's always there because it's there as a reminder that you are still changing something for the better, or you're still making something new and you're committed to it. Because if you don't make those changes, if you don't keep working and keep some discomfort, you're going to become very complacent and you're going to eventually fail. And that's really the thing that hits home for me. Like it took me 5 years in a side hustle to be in the side hustles and start doing it all. But until I really committed, it really didn't do as much as it could have done for me, because I'm doing so much more today full time in this than I ever could have done being in a job and doing this as a side hustle. But change is a process. And I think that's really what we want to emphasize too here, is that surrendering does take time. Think about most wars. There is someone eventually surrenders, but there's a lot of battles that occur before that happens.
Let me ask you though, does change take time or does the outcome take time? Because what I'm saying is you have to change immediately. I know you want this outcome, and I have to remind myself all the time, I am not that person. I'm not that person because I've changed multiple times. Okay. I've had to surrender multiple times in my life. But every once in a while, I have to actually say out loud, I'm not that person anymore.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree.
Because the muscle memory is saying, you are that person, go do that thing. They're like, but I'm not that person. I don't do that thing anymore.
Right.
Okay. But it's not that the change, for me at least, it's not that the change is a process. The outcome is a process. And every once in a while, I have to just remind myself, like, hey, idiot, you're not that person anymore. And it's a momentary thing, but it will come back to you because it's the comfort. When you're going through the very difficult, uncomfortable stuff, your body is going to seek out comfort. We are survival machines. That's what we are. We want to procreate and survive. That's what we're built for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if something is hard, you might not survive. So we look to go, well, what's the path of least resistance? But that won't allow you to get the things that you want. And that's where I'm trying to go with this. And even if you're working out, like Tom was saying, and building your muscle, if you hit a point, well, if you don't want to grow anymore, then you just maintain it. It becomes a habit. And then it's not uncomfortable anymore. And it's like, all right, I'm just going to maintain this. It becomes part of your life. Right. And what happens as you surrender, and I'll get back to you in a second, Tom, what happens as you surrender is each of these uncomfortable things, okay, becomes comfortable at a certain point because it becomes second nature.
Mm-hmm.
And you can stop there if you want. But what most of you who will actually build a business, you will never stop. There's always more.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. And that's kind of what, and your question about, is it more about the change or the outcome? I think it is more about the outcome, But I also think that there is a series of changes that need to occur to get to that outcome. And I think that's what takes time, because it's not always one thing that has to change. It may be multiple things that have to change to get to the desired outcome. But what
Everything.
it is everything. And it's the sustaining of those changes, right? The sustaining of those changes until the point where it becomes comfortable. And then you got to go through this cycle again, right? Because once you go, because there's comfort, fear, learning, and then growth. Comfort, fear, learning, and growth. And eventually your growth zone just feeds into the next comfort zone. Because once you've learned everything about that thing, it's time to now go learn something else that you didn't know to keep the cycle going. And I think what people don't realize all of the time is that you constantly have to surrender and grow, because it never stops. And that's where I think people always want this end point. Like, when is it going to stop, right? You don't wake up one day and go, oh, great, I don't have to do anything new today. Or, oh, that was uncomfortable, I don't have to worry about that. Like, no, you always have to. And as a business owner, that is such an important mindset, is that never be comfortable. If you're going to run a successful business, you can never be comfortable. And it's from that repetition of going through each of the phases over and over that you realize that.
And as you go through that and you live in the uncomfort, what will happen is the outcome will change.
Mm-hmm.
You'll either arrive at the outcome that you work towards, or you'll start working towards a new outcome. And that's what happens. This is why I'm saying that the outcome is what the process is, right? It's that you're constantly changing the outcome that you're going towards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you won't really know that until you surrender the old way you used to be. Because if you don't surrender the old way, you're just going to get the outcome that you already know, which is a paycheck or misery or thinking you have this lack. And this is where I want to end this on two things: lack and coaching. The problem is most people want to change because they have this lacking mindset. And what they are hoping to get is this abundance.
Mm-hmm.
But if you live constantly in lack, and I'm worried about this, and I'm worried about that, and I don't have this, and I don't have that, you will never, ever get anything. Because your brain will tell your body what to do, and your body and your brain will tell the universe what you're ready for. And if you're constantly in this lack of I can't, and I won't, and I shouldn't, and I'm not, that is exactly what you'll get. You have to believe and surrender to this new person you're going to be to become that. And the last thing I want to say is coaching. This is what Tom and I do over and over and over again, is we help people surrender their old habits and embrace the new ones. It is not easy. That's why we have careers. Because coaching someone along that way is very, very difficult to stay the path, because you constantly want to go back to the comfort. Each and every time you level up, you're changing again and surrendering again, as Tom said. And that's how Tom and I have helped so many people achieve things they never thought possible. Literally never, ever thought possible. Because you are capable of it. Everyone who's successful is the same as you. There's no difference between them and you, except maybe you haven't surrendered yet.